Hi, everyone, and welcome to the women's game. It is Olympics time. The Olympics are such a unique and special tournament. 12 of the globe's top teams dreaming of gold, competing for a medal across the 7 best stadiums in France, all culminating in Paris at Parc des Princes Stadium on August 10th for the gold medal match. This is the first of 3 preview podcasts that we are doing ahead of the Olympics for the women's game. Today's episode previews Group B, which is the USA, Zambia, Germany, and Australia. I want to welcome my co-host, Rog Bennett, fresh off our Altcast, covering the United States' last send-off game against Costa Rica. Yes, Rog, we are Altcasters now, whatever that means. It's great to see you. We're here to go over everything women's soccer for the upcoming Olympics.
Oh, Sammy, it is so good to see you, my partner in Altcast life. And the Olympics, what a tournament, super compressed. Really an elite sprint to glory. Almost every group, and there's 3 of them, feels like the group of death. I know. And one of my favourite things about it, that gold medal on offer, a young United States team loaded with so much promise, a new manager, really a leap into the unknown for everybody under the truly remarkable Emma Hayes. As a person, so much is expected of her. This is her team now in every single way. We've got a lot to cover in the course of these 3 episodes. We're going to go group by group through every team quickly but thoroughly. 12 countries. We're going to be a bit like Rick Steves on double speed. But Sam, you've experienced this tournament. You are an Olympian. You're part of the bronze medal winning team at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. Can you articulate what is singular about this competition and this format?
The Olympics are unique to other major tournaments, I think, because it's such a historic and global event. Like, it's not just a soccer tournament. It's really this gathering of athletes and nations. The Olympics have been going on for so long throughout history. And I actually feel like in my experience, it's more widely accepted as an accomplishment, especially here in America. Like, whenever I would be traveling for the national team and maybe I'd have the crest on, or I'd look like I was a professional athlete going somewhere, and somebody would ask, who are you? Where are you going? Like, what are you doing? What do you do for work? And I would try to explain it to them. But the thing that would move the needle would be when I'd say, yes, I'm trying to make the Olympics. Like, saying I'm on the national team or I'm going to the World Cup. For a lot of people in America, doesn't move the needle as much as the mention of the Olympics. So obviously the World Cup for soccer fans is really the pinnacle and the biggest thing, but the Olympics is like the biggest thing in all of sports.
And this Olympic football tournament is an exhausting one. And the squads are tiny. Just 16 outfield players on each, trying to compete in 6 games across just 17 days, which is insane. But Sam, you've lived it, I think, barely. It is. The format is such a strange one.
The format is like so hard and fast. The games really come at you. But women's soccer at the Olympics is kicking off on July 25th. The tournament consists of 12 teams. They're divided into 3 groups, 4 teams in each group. So there are 3 games in the group stage. Each team is going to play each other. This is totally normal. And then the top 2 teams from each group go through, plus the top 2 third-place teams move on to the quarterfinals. So 8 of the 12 teams will be moving on to the knockout rounds.
We should add that while Olympics football on the men's side is essentially an under-23s tournament, that's because FIFA didn't want any kind of other competition in the world challenging the supremacy of their men's World Cup. The women's side doesn't have any such age limit. So this is the real deal. This is full strength, full bore, uncut wonder. US are one of only 5 countries, along with France, Japan, New Zealand and Spain, who have both men's and women's teams in the competition. So they'll double the chance of being able to learn if you can wear a gold medal through an airport security line at the end of it. US women, this goes without saying, I think everyone listening to this will know, have won gold 4 times. But the most recent was back in 2012.
A while ago, Raj. This preview pod is presented by our friends at Allstate. We are so grateful for them, for all that they do for us and for soccer in this country. Before we talk specifically about the U.S. women's national team and Group B, I just wanted to quickly take a moment to highlight just how difficult these Olympics were to qualify for. We're missing some top teams like 2023 World Cup finalists England or Team Great Britain, as they would have competed in this tournament, Sweden, who are perennial Olympic contenders, and an occasional American nemesis. And the Netherlands. Viv Miedema, Dutch forward and newly signed Man City striker, spoke with me recently on an episode of Friendlies about the Dutch national team. Despite missing out, Viv says that she'll be watching.
I will definitely try and watch the games. I think it's a bit easier because it's in Paris. So if I actually have the time, I might even try and get the Eurostar vibe.
The absence of, we have to acknowledge, these three nations, giants, the defending Euro winners, a recent World Cup runner-up and a World Cup semi-finalist. That kind of underlines just how difficult it is to compete in this tournament. Even just to qualify, the footballing equivalent of trying to get a pair of Wales Bonner Sambas. 12 teams in the field. We'll battle it out now across France. The final two will face each other August 10th in Parc des Princes Stadium in Paris.
And we're going to be covering all of it. So we have an extensive plan for coverage of this tournament that includes a pregame podcast that will drop before each U.S. women's national team game, plus a live reaction show that will air immediately after the final whistle of those U.S. women's national team games. To make sure you don't miss anything, please subscribe to our podcast feed and our YouTube channel. While you're there on YouTube, turn on your notifications. That way you won't miss anything. You can also follow along with us on social media at Women's Game MIB on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And while you're at all of those things, subscribe to our newsletter for the latest in all things women's football. You can even send me an email. Just write to womensgamemib@menandblazers.com.
Oh, but who won't be writing to you because he's no longer with us, is Pierre de Coubertin. I don't know how you pronounce that. Pierre de Coubertin. Which I've just terribly pronounced. He's the co-founder, or was, of the International Olympic Committee. And he once said the most important thing about the Olympics was, quote, not winning, but taking part. Which probably won't be the spirit of Emma Hayes' pre-match PowerPoints, but the United States have fallen. These are the best of times, the worst of times, to a historically low 5th place in the FIFA World Rankings for what they are worth. But the good news, they head to Paris on the back of a 9-game unbeaten streak. They've outscored the opposition 18-5 during this run, despite a slightly frustrating inability to click and turn goal scoring opportunities into, actual goals. But our captain, Lindsay Horan, she said before leaving, we want a gold medal at the end of the day, which feels like a much more American attitude. Sam, what has struck you about Emma Hayes in the short time she's been on these shores so far?
I think the main thing that struck me about Emma so far that really suits this team so well is that she's such a winner. She just carries herself as somebody who demands a lot from the people around her, expects a lot from her team. I actually had the chance to speak with her in New York City a couple of weeks ago, and her energy and enthusiasm were almost tangible. Like, I wanted to play for her. I was ready to lace my boots back up and be like, Emma, I'm ready to go. She gives this feeling like, I want to win for this person. It was really infectious. Crystal Dunn, who actually played for Emma at Chelsea in 2017 and 2018, had some great things to say about her when she came on Friendlies earlier this year.
Emma is someone who is just an exceptional human being. Like, she cares so much about you as a person and taps into that to get the best out of you as a player. And I think that is not something that most coaches do. I think a lot of coaches focus on winning. They want the talent that they recruited to perform at the highest. And it's like, yeah, we all want to do that. We all want to win. But I think she really takes that extra time to care about your interests on and off the field. And I think that really matters and goes a long way.
God, Emma Hayes is just a fascinating combination. She says it herself, of the very English, but so much of her attitude, so much of her understanding about football was forged on these shores. There is something incredibly American about the swagger and confidence of Emma Hayes. So let's dive in to this incredibly new era. This is the first tournament for the United States under new management. Emma was only announced as a new coach last November. She gave every American one thing to talk about at Thanksgiving tables that didn't start an argument. But she finished the full season first at Chelsea, where she won the title for an incredible 7th time in 12 years before crossing the Atlantic, where she met the full team for the first time. I love this. She showed them a hype video set to Tracy Chapman's Talking About a Revolution, Game Recognises Game, and shared a slogan for the team, which is quite fascinating. New identity, new history, new heights. However, she's only been here since May. She's admitted herself that she's had so little time to create the complex changes she wants to make. She compared herself to a heart surgeon in the middle of an emergency surgery. That's her quote. Sam, we have dreams for this United States team, rightful dreams of glory again. But to some extent, they've got to be tempered by the practical reality that this Olympics, you could make the case, have almost come too soon. Where are we, in your mind, having watched this team for 4 games under Emma, in terms of the process of change?
I think they're really busy. Look, I think there is a lot to change. I think they're doing it in a really condensed amount of time. We said the other day, Emma is trying to fit an entire semester's worth into just a summer session. So they have a lot to do. She's only had 2 camps, only 4 games before a major world tournament. This is really a huge undertaking for the players to learn a new philosophy like this, a new way of coaching, a new way of approaching. It can take a really long time. There's new language. There's probably a new schedule. There's probably new warm-ups. There are so many things changing. When I think about this team, though, they're full of the best players that the U.S. has to offer. They are some of the smartest minds. Think Tierna Davidson studying God knows what, symbolic systems at Stanford. And they're also so talented. They can take this information and they can apply it. But Emma has also been really adamant that this exact thing, this adaptability, this willingness and openness to learn and change is the key to success in the modern game these days. This is Emma speaking on how important tactical flexibility and adaptability is at our live show at Webster Hall. Was versatility and tactical flexibility a big component in choosing this roster?
Look, I think the game you have to be tactically flexible to play at the highest level now, whether you press in a man for man, whether you sit in a mid-block in a 4-4-2, whether you build out in a 3-4-3, whether you do it with a low fullback, high fullback, whether you do it with a split midfield, whether you do it side by side. Flexibility is what happens in a game. So for me, starting point is I look at the opponent, look at our playing style, our principles, then what tweaks would I then make to exploit that opponent? I'm only interested in us, in how to get us to do that, but also have to recognise state of the game might change, might need a goal, there's 10 minutes left. Is it a case of, go double width, stay single width? Is it our rest defence change from a 2 and a 3 or a 3 and a 2? Is it that we have to go split in the 2-8 so I can get somebody else in the box? Do that 8 have to be someone who's good aerially because we don't have it good in the 9? It's all those factors. It's not straightforward.
That's a lot.
Hopefully it won't all make the podcast.
I'm a very pessimistic person, but even I get excited.
And
we've seen seen this US roster together 4 times now. And yes, I mean, the headline is, this is very much a work in progress. It's also an incredibly young squad. I think of the 18 players named, only 5 of them are over 30 years of age, 9 first-time Olympians, just 10 players from the United States 2023 World Cup campaign were on that plane to Paris. Some big name shock omissions too, as we will discuss. But what were your thoughts when you heard the team news? What are the strengths of the US lineup?
The strengths of the squad are the flexibility and the fluidity. It's just what Emma Hayes is expressing they need. Obviously, Alex Morgan being left off the roster, it's a loss in the leadership and experience category. And we actually may have missed her presence a little bit in these last 2 games against Mexico and Costa Rica as we struggled to really finish all those chances that we created. But I think what we're seeing from Emma in this roster selection is the prioritization of players who can play multiple positions. So I'm thinking Crystal Dunn, who was named to this roster as a forward, but then we just saw play outside back against Costa Rica. Then we have Jaden Shaw, who can actually play in the 10 or out wide. Emily Sonnet, who's naturally a defender, outside back or center back, but she just subbed into the 6 against Costa Rica. So
Alyssa Nair.
Goalkeeper on paper, striker at heart. But beyond that, Emma's really prioritizing players who can be fluid in their roles on the field too, not just positionally. So like Jenna Neiswanger, she's capable of getting into the attack as an outside back and actually being a dangerous attacker for us. That front 3, Mal, Sophia, Trinity, they're constantly interchanging. Emma Hayes has continued to talk about how there are only 16 outfield spots. And with these games happening in such quick succession, it goes play, travel, train, play. Only two full days in between games, these players are going to need to adapt to different opponents, different stadiums, new situations, changing roles. We just heard Emma speak about this. The modern game requires these in-game tactical adjustments. And I actually think that this is the right roster for that. Plus, a young roster like this is hopefully more likely to be able to handle the load of this tournament physically.
One body blow before the tournament began. 24-year-old Brazilian-born attacking wonder Catarina Macario dropped out of the squad because of a knee irritation. She was replaced by the world's greatest podcasting striker, Lynn Williams, who we'll no doubt talk about. But I've got to say, humanly, I feel for Kat. She's already missed about 2 years with a torn ACL. She'd only just got back into action for Chelsea. She is a creative heartbeat, the kind of creator that this squad really, really needs. How do you see her absence affecting all of this to come?
I, first and foremost, am so disappointed for Kat. I think I feel for her because I had a long injury as well. And to miss this much soccer, I know for somebody like Kat who's so passionate about the game, it must be killing her. To have to miss a world tournament, another world tournament after she missed the World Cup last year, it's so devastating. And on a human level, my heart really goes out to her. The loss of Kat changes our midfield a lot with depth, especially in that 10 role. Rose Lavelle was set to start in that 10 role on Tuesday against Costa Rica, and she was a late scratch due to just some leg tightness, hopefully nothing serious. But we noticed very quickly in that game that actually moving Lindsay Horan higher into the 10 changed the attacking dynamics of this team. So I think that depth-wise, now that there's really only 4 official midfielders in the roster, we're going to need to look to see other players who can help fill in there. Can Jaden or Crystal get some reps in that 10 role to give Rose a rest during the tournament? And even like we saw the other day, can Emily Sonnet rotate into that 6th position? Again, this is why those versatile players are so, so valuable on a small roster.
To me, the absence of Kat, it makes Rose Lavelle almost feel like our everything. Rose Lavelle should be protected at all costs for our nation. But Sammy, this young squad, this football almost without recovery, just relentless. As we saw in the last game, that frustrating 0-0 draw against a really well organised, but we've got to be honest, eminently beatable Costa Rica. And we're almost in a unique place right now as fans. And honestly, not a comfortable place, nor one that we've been accustomed to as United States fans. I want to acknowledge how odd this is to say as a US women's national team fan of having to temper our expectations. I mean, can we? Is this too rational to say that we should see this tournament as an experience, a journey for this young team? You said yesterday, you came up with a great phrasing. They are almost an American underdog, and to look at this almost as a crucial experience to set up to that peak 2027 World Cup, or does it just not work like that for us mentally?
It's really hard to say. I think I gained a lot from hearing from Becky on our Altcast about how, maybe this team is feeling a little bit of anger. Maybe they're embracing this role, and dare I call them an underdog and not have everybody flip out at me? I don't know. But I do think that rationally, Rog, you're right. Emma and U.S. Soccer, of course, they have one eye on the future. When U.S. Soccer chose Emma as the coach, which was certainly an elite choice, they did so knowing that the team would be without a head coach for 6 months right before heading into a major world tournament. When Emma's been choosing between players for this roster, it feels like she went younger. It's reflected in the young average age of this team. This is the youngest Olympic roster since 2008. This is something that Emma has been talking about in the media, cap accumulation. She thinks that not enough players in the national team pool have enough caps. So I think just the discussion of this is kind of evidence that there is one eye on the 2027 World Cup. Emma wants these younger players to have more caps by then, so she's giving them experience now. And while I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's too much change too soon, I'd say that this is certainly a moment where long-term success is being prioritized. And I think actually that for an organization like U.S. Soccer, who haven't always been able to think towards the future, perhaps it's actually the right amount of change at the right time. As the media, we can't berate this team for being in a learning and growing process. The standard of the team is still elite. That is what I know for sure. These players will still do whatever it takes to win. But if we want long-term change and improvement, which I think everybody's been asking for, we should be patient and understanding with the team as they learn and grow.
I think that's really well said. And with youth, with greenness, with cap accumulation, the other side of that is where's the leadership? And we should talk about the captain, Lindsay Horan, captaining the team on her own at a major tournament for the first time without co-captain Alex Morgan alongside her at the Women's World Cup. This US team, they used to have leaders all over the field. When you interviewed the players and you talked about who are the leaders, you'd often get the answer, everybody. But suddenly, Lindsay is just one of 4 players who have 100 or more caps. So how can you decide? I think she's pretty crucial. You know her really well. What kind of leader is she? What kind of leader will she need to be to get the most out of these players?
Yeah, so when I think about this, I always think back to 2019 because it was one of the most well-led and happiest and successful teams that I was a part of when we won that World Cup. And so that year, the leaders on that team took a lot of pressure and almost obligation off of the youngest players. There was so much going on. Like, we beat Thailand 13-0. The media was mad at us. There was a lot going on with Pino. The leaders, including Pino on that team, really allowed us younger players to just focus on playing. They kind of handled all of that outside noise on our behalf and insulated and protected us from it. And I think we're going to be able to see some of that with Lindsay. She may have to be the face of the team, be in the media more, take that burden and load off some of those newer players. She also is definitely going to have to advocate to the coaches on behalf of her teammates, especially with a new coach heading into a tournament, the schedule, things off the field. If something's wrong, she's going to have to handle those issues. And lots of times those things are coming up during a transition like this. So it's a really big responsibility, but I know that Lindsay's ready and equipped to serve this team in this role. This is Lindsay's 3rd Olympics. She knows what to expect. She has a lot of support around her. And I think what I'd say is, despite the average age of this team being young, we still have Alyssa Nair, Crystal Dunn, Lynn, Rose, and Sonnet. They've done this before. And these players all have enough experience that they can support Lindsay in those difficult moments. And again, I think that's what made our 2019 World Cup team so special. Yes, we had designated captains, but we had 5 or 6 or 7 other leaders who shared that burden and made the job more manageable.
God, you're making me feel optimistic again. Where there is Alyssa Nair, there is hope. Yeah, Godspeed. Nair, our goalkeeper, one of the truly great cult hero characters in the American game. She'll be alongside the 2 centre backs. You've named one of them, Gotham's Tierna Davidson, an NWSL Defender of the Year, and US Soccer Female Player of the Year, San Diego's Naomi Girma. Someone, honestly, humanly, I admire so much. Every time Naomi comes on my show, I learn so much from her. You've mentioned what they study together. They're both proper Stanford, I think is what you say. They both studied symbolic systems. Every time Naomi comes on, I actually look at what that is. And it's just like one of those scenes from A Beautiful Mind. I think it's essentially rocket science in my pea brain. United States yet to concede in the Emma Hayes with that trio on the field. And watching the 2 tune-up games, one of the things that feels a little bit different about this new Emma-led US women's national team is the build out of the back, which is now demanded of them. Both Tierna and Naomi being asked to become distributors. They're looking to play key passes, diagonals, almost at the rate like Casey Musgraves unleashes collaborations. It's occasionally shaky against Mexico, but when it works, my lord, it is stunning. And you're watching 2 defenders who are trying to work as almost as creators as well as destroyers, Sam.
What I really like about building out of the back is that it's asking so much from the opponent. Like, are you really going to press us high all game? They're making the field bigger. And honestly, if us playing out isn't working, one of our greatest strengths is the option to just play our forwards in behind. So when we are struggling under pressure, I actually don't mind a long ball over the top for Trin or Mal or Soph to just run onto. But that composure, the technical ability, and the vision to play out of the back is something that Naomi and Tierna are completely capable of. If anybody's making good decisions out there, it's them. We actually spoke with Becky about this on our altcast during the Costa Rica game. And Becky had such high praise for these 2 center backs. She said that she was really commending them for trying to play out of the back, even under pressure. And what we ended up seeing, and this was one of a few really bright moments in the game, was this beautiful through ball from Tierna Davidson. Seriously, one of my highlights of the game. It was more like a midfielder's through ball. I was jealous of Tierna for having this vision and ability to pull this off. It didn't result in a goal, but it's one of the signals that the vision and decision making from the back and the ability to help create chances by maintaining possession is there.
Yeah, but the true challenge is what happens after that, because the leitmotif for the United States at that last World Cup was the problem we had scoring goals. Scored just 4 goals at the World Cup. I think only 3 of them were in open play, and they came against Vietnam in the opener. We saw that in the last game before the team left for Paris, that the Costa Rica scoreless final tune-up game, which we will only whisper, we will not talk with confidence. US women had 26 shots in that game, 12 shots on target, an enormous 67 touches in the Costa Rica box. The most, all of those numbers, in any game in which they failed to score since data was collected, which is, Sam, it's not good, Bob.
Well, I'm going to just quickly shout out the Costa Rican goalkeeper who had the game of her life, Bermudez. She made a lot of incredible saves. Costa Rican defense was really strong. They were playing in a low block. But I'm also going to quickly transition us, Raj, to a happier topic. Our Allstate player to watch is the Chicago Red Stars, Mallory Swanson, a player who needs a chant set to the Amy Winehouse song, Valerie. Mallory. I don't think that was really the right tune.
Oh, it's fantastic.
But we need to make it happen. We need to make it happen.
Sounds so good in the Parisians will love it. They'll sing along with that in a heartbeat. And by the way, Mallory deserves that rendition. Can you just give us it again? It was stunning.
For some reason, I'm like having trouble placing the right tune.
You are, no,
Mallory. I just don't even think that's right still.
I don't know, but that's how it is now.
I think I'm singing the wrong song.
That's it. Everyone should just start singing Amy Winehouse's song to your new tune. I think you've taken it and improved it, and Mallory deserves it because the tenacity, the perseverance, which are the greatest qualities, the greatest human qualities in football. Mal embodies them. This time last year, she was still fighting her way back from a truly devastating knee injury. She came on friendlies and talked to you. I'd recommend it to everyone, but when she talks about it, it's horrifying to listen to what she went through in that April 2023 friendly against Ireland. Agonisingly kept her out of last summer's World Cup. How we missed her. She returned to the field first time March 16th after an enormous 343 days and 3 separate knee surgeries in the Red Stars' first game of the season. Picked up, though, where she left off, 7 goals in 15 games since. She also started Emma Hayes' first game in charge for the US friendly against South Korea. She only went and just scored 2 goals in a 4-0 win. I mean, Sam, we always know Mal as someone who has that speed in the final third, but in this new Emma system where she demands so much more of her players, Mal is also bringing speed of mind. It's been amazing these past couple of games to see Mal create chance after chance for other teammates. It's almost as if she's adapting a game where she doesn't just need to be on the end of the chances, she can conjure them.
Yeah, Mal is in really elite form. It's been like so incredible to witness her come back from that injury and almost seamlessly. I'm sure it didn't feel seamless to her, but to us it looked seamless. She just returned to the world-class form that she was in before her injury last year, which then was incredible form. Mal is bringing a sharpness and like a magic to the attack. She can create something totally on her own, as we often see her do with her club team, the Chicago Red Stars, but she can also combine in front of goal, carve up a defender out wide, and cross for an assist. If Mal performs well this tournament, which she's in the right form to do, I think that will be the difference maker for this team. The way that she's been playing, I really think she's the key to unlocking this offense, and all signs point to her having success this tournament.
Sam, this team has struggled in front of goal. We're going to be honest, these last 2 games. And something we talked about on the Altcast was Emma's working so hard on crafting the idea of plan A. What happens when it's not working? What's plan B? Which takes us to our Good Vibes FC co-host, the great Lynn Williams, striker who has scored more goals than anyone else in NWSL history. Looks like she'll be coming off the bench behind that trio of Soph Smith, Mal Swanson and Trinity. She's that extra gear. She's at something different. She's that change up in attack, right? She
for sure is. I think Lynn brings something really special to this roster. I want to pause for a moment and just talk about Lynn's journey of getting on this roster. Lynn wasn't invited into that June camp, Emma's first camp with this team, and I think she could have counted herself out. She picked up a small calf injury with Gotham, But she kept going. She worked her way back. She got back on the field for Gotham.
It's what she always does, Sam. That is her career. She says about herself that I am always written off, and she always rises back harder, faster.
She does. It's almost like she thrives when she gets written off. And I really think it's so incredible that she got through this. She got through this injury. She got back on the field for Gotham. She makes it as an alternate, and then horrible what happened for Kat, but Lynn was ready. And so she got picked to be the replacement for an injured player. And it really is such an incredible feat when you think about Lynn's last 6 weeks. What she brings to this roster is really unmatched. Lynn is a totally unique player. Her speed and her tenacity actually in defending puts the other team under so much pressure that it's unlikely very many players can withstand that and continue to play out and complete passes. Lynn's pressure unlocks a transitional attack. Her presence in that counterattack, her precision in the box, it's really going to help this U.S. team. I have a feeling that Lynn will play a really big role on the field, probably as a substitute at the beginning of this tournament, but off the field as well. Lynn is a really great person, Rog. She's a great leader. I know the team trusts her, and I really just couldn't be prouder of her.
Oh, Godspeed, Lynn Williams. It is amazing, Sam, what the human motivation of not wanting to podcast with us during the Olympics will do to someone. Oh, Lynn, go and light the world on fire. When, again, I think about that aspect of what we're going to watch, again, I feel like a surge of optimism. But we've got to acknowledge the full picture context. It is a tough time for those of us who love the game in our nation. You know, the women have won the She Believes Cup and the Gold Cup, which have been like magnificent steps to witness of growth after that. 2023, just the hangover, the sting, the pain, the trauma, honestly, of being knocked out in that World Cup in the round of 16. The falling to the unprecedented fifth in the FIFA rankings, which I mean, the FIFA rankings mean everything and nothing, but it is a sting to the sense of identity, how we see ourselves, this all-time low. The men's side of our American setup couldn't get out the group stage of this summer's Copa America, which we hosted, so we didn't deliver in front of our own supporters. The coach, Greg Berhalter, was fired in the wake. So if the US women do not win Olympic gold, this is kind of incredible. It'll be the first time ever in the history of our nation that the US women's national team has gone 3 straight global tournaments without a title. I mean, just saying that is unfathomable. There's all this context, there's all this reality, there's this loss of the core brand of invincibility, which we've all been infused with. We almost took it for granted, if we're being honest. We should never have taken it for granted. But does it create more pressure on these players to deliver for this nation, for US soccer as an organisation, and for us fans?
Well, Raj, I'm like cringing hearing you say that.
So am I.
I appreciate the honesty and the question. I at the risk of being like too optimistic, I want to be a realist about this. I just have such faith in this group, and what I'm feeling is actually kind of the opposite. I think instead of really feeling this pressure closing in and caving in on them, from what I'm hearing and gathering and seeing on TikTok, I actually think this team is having more fun. Even after that frustrating Costa Rica game, the team picked their heads up and they were like, all right, we still have this job to do. We're going to Paris. We're going to celebrate. We've made this roster. I think that there will always exist a pressure to just be on this team, to just make the roster, to just step on the field. And that pressure is internal. It comes from the inside. It comes from within more than the outside could ever put on them. The team upholds the highest standard. And I know firsthand from experiencing the stress and the elite level of every single thing inside a U.S. Women's National Team camp. So what I'm seeing is actually the opposite of what you'd think would be a rigid, uptight group that we've seen and that I've experienced before, where if you make a mistake, you're yanked off the field, you're cut, and there's no freedom and not really as much joy. This team, to me, looks tight-knit, happy, curious. It seems like they're supporting one another. In a moment where you might expect them to be tiptoeing around, it seems like they're enjoying it. Posting TikToks and getting a listener to dance in the street for a TikTok. I'm like, is this team unlocking this magical concoction that we've never had before? It gives me a lot of peace about this tournament. And I want to see this team play freely because that's when they're going to be at their best.
I guess what I'm hearing you say is little green bag and some stompers, little green bag and some stompers, which I apologise. It's much better out of their mouth than out of mine, but I could not help myself. Linen pants and a new ring. We need to move on. And Sam knows I've watched that video so many times.
I know,
I've
Rog,
memorised.
it's scary that you have it memorised so well.
It's really remarkable and awful in equal measure. But let's talk about the rest of Group B, which is honestly, it's hyper competitive. I can't wait for these games. They're all stacked to a challenge. I want to be completely clear. Because the first team the United States will face is Zambia. July 25th, 3 p.m. Eastern, live from Nice. Oh, I cannot wait to see us take the field against the quite excellently nicknamed Copper Queens, which honestly sounds like the world's most ultra-confident geology club. This unique and magnificent team is going to Paris after beating Morocco 3-2 on aggregate in a two-legged qualifier, making their second straight appearance in the Olympics, which is an immense achievement for a country that just 10 years ago were ranked 116th in the world. That was out of a possible 132 teams. It is incredible to me. The growth of the game in Africa, one of the most singing stories of the last 10 years. And the growth in Zambia has been propelled by the fact that so many members of this team are actually soldiers. This is incredible. In the Zambian Army and Air Force, assistant coach Florence Wheeler said, quote, "Football's a very short career, so at least they'll have some jobs to sustain themselves when they hang up their boots." The team is led by the quite sizzling superstar Barbara Banda, a remarkable human being, a former professional boxer and current Army Staff Sergeant. She's in her first season with the Orlando Pride. And in her very first NWSL game, she had a Harry Kane hat-trick, a goal, an assist and a penalty. She's currently co-leading the league with 12 goals in 12 games. She's making NWSL look easy. She's joined by attacker Grace Chanda, who's joining the Pride from Madrid after the Olympics, and Bay City striker Rachel Kundananji.
Zambia are such an interesting team, and one that I'm really excited to see on the world stage again. There was a moment where we feared they were going to be suspended from these Olympics as punishment for undue influence by third parties within their federation, but that seems to have passed. Emma Hayes said this about Zambia.
With Zambia, you have a team that will play less progressive passes, i.e. control the game in a certain way. But if you play man for man all over the pitch against them, it's going to be a difficult game. Their ability to transition is better than any team I've seen in world football. We've been watching them, unbelievable at their ability to go from back to front. So for us, structure becomes essential. That becomes the bedrock, what we do in possession, and how we're thinking about what happens when there is a turnover, to be able to get those things right. And then get all the individual detail, which of course I'm not going to disclose around those individual players.
Zambia's attacking talent is scary, but we should beat them. The key is to neutralize Barbara Banda with really disciplined transition into defense. When we do lose the ball, we have to immediately win it back. We also need to deny service into Barbara Banda. This means the center backs are tight on her, and then the 6 is in front denying passing channels into her. And then we need really tight organization in and around the box so she isn't left free on crosses or set pieces. It's a handful trying to keep Barbara Banda off the score sheet, as pretty much every team in the NWSL has learned over the past couple of months. Emma actually went on to say that Barbara Banda is the most informed striker in the world right now, and she will definitely be a handful for us and everyone else in the tournament.
From Nice, we go to Marseille for the second group stage game, Sunday, July 28th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That'll be on the USA Network. They'll be facing Germany, who won the gold medal in 2016. A strong team led by an interim coach, the quite alliterative Horst Hubrecht, who coached the German men to a silver medal back in 2016. Horst can't get enough precious metals. He loves the stuff. Germany didn't qualify for the Tokyo Olympics. They were grouped at the last World Cup. They're currently ranked ahead of the United States, though, because, well, I guess FIFA rankings make less sense than YouTube's algorithm. But they're a very different team in transition themselves in terms of squad personnel. That iconic captain, 33-year-old Alexandra Popp, is the only player left from that gold medal winning team.
Here's what Emma Hayes had to say about Germany.
And I think with Germany, team I know quite well. more traditional 4-4-2 team, but really dynamic, unbelievable wingers. I think world football probably produce more crosses into the box other than Spain than any other team. So their threat is out wide.
Germany have had some recent ups and downs in their Euro qualifiers. They lost to Iceland away, but then they defeated Austria decidedly. They're a solid, disciplined team. In that recent Euro qualifier, Lena Oberdorf was injured, tearing her ACL. This is a huge loss for Germany, as she's one of the world's best midfielders. Germany are also without Sarah de Brits, but the squad is bolstered by our TWG player to watch, Leah Schuler, who scored 5 goals in the recent Euro qualifiers, plus a familiar face for U.S. women's national team coach Emma Hayes in Sioke Nuskin, versatile 23-year-old attacker who just had a breakout season at Chelsea.
Sammy, can I ask you one question about Germany? Does the United States have a slight advantage here because the European players are out of their club season? And as you know, most of the Americans playing in WSL, so are very, very much in mid-season peak form.
I wish I had a straight answer for you, Rog. I think this is a great question, but I feel like the presence of the Euro qualifiers are kind of throwing a wrench in here this year. Usually I'd say that, yeah, maybe the U.S. has an advantage in the summer months being in mid-season NWSL form, while most other nations are in the middle of an off-season. But this didn't ring true last summer. The 2 finalists in the World Cup were full of players in off-season, Spain and England. So I'm really not sure how this factors in at this point. I do feel like you could look at it either way. Being in season, yeah, maybe is helpful with loading week over week and being in game form. But sometimes it can be overdone. Even just this past week against Costa Rica, Jenna Neiswanger and Rose Lavelle were both unavailable against Costa Rica just as precaution, but sometimes players can get overloaded.
To that third and final group stage game against old foe Australia, July 31st in Marseille. That game will be on USA and Peacock. We will face the quite mighty Matildas, who magnificently surged into the semi-finals of the last World Cup, one of the most joyous narratives of that entire tournament. They qualified for the Olympics, just by casually beating Uzbekistan 13-0 on aggregate. The most dominant performance by Australians, well, at least since Kate Blanchett in Tar. And their coach, someone you know well, Tony Gustafsson, former US women's national team assistant coach. He said there's a vibe and a determination, his words, to his team. But there's also a little bit of concern about injuries. That's a theme of this entire tournament. Not only are they without the dynamic goal scoring, bat flipping, singular powerhouse, it is Sam Kerr, still recovering from an ACL injury. Oh, come back soon, Sam. Both captain Steph Catley and defender Caitlin Torpey of your San Diego Wave have picked up lower leg injuries at the worst possible time for them. Plus, Caitlin Ford was just seen pulling out of warm-ups at their recent game against China with ice on her quad. So which players do you got your eye on? Because it is a deep squad. There are young players stepping up. Who do you see? Whose name are we going to learn in this tournament?
Yeah, Australia is a really versatile and gritty team. Playing against them with the US is always such a physical battle. I actually feel like they're almost a little bit similar to us in their athleticism and their mentality. Their midfield has always intrigued me. Emily Van Egmond has been a stable force for them for years, playing her club football for San Diego Wave. They also have, as you just mentioned, Caitlin Ford, who plays for Arsenal, and Ellie Carpenter, a speedy outside back who plays for Lyon. I'm really excited to see young Mary Fowler in another world tournament. She's our player to watch for Australia here at the women's game. She's a really promising, attacking-minded player who just had a great season at Man City. She has a huge opportunity to help Australia score some goals in the absence of Sam Kerr. Michelle Heyman, who actually has come out of retirement and has now made this Olympic roster, is another forward who potentially could prove to be an opportunistic finisher for this team. Here's what Emma Hayes had to say about this very familiar opponent.
And I think with Australia, a lot of rotations, a lot of variety to Tony's play. And there's been a tactical evolution from them, whether it's inverting fullback, stuff like that. So you have to adapt between each of them. That's the part of the job I love the most. Being like, I like all the fun tactical stuff where I don't like games that are too easy. So to your point, is harder better? Yes, because I think it engages you. If you're a top performer, the harder it is, the more I want to do it.
But Rog, it is time now for predictions on who will be getting out of this group.
You know who I've got coming out of this group? The United States. They will take the group. We honestly have no idea of their weight class, if we're being honest, because they have not really played elite opponents yet in any of Emma's 4 games in charge. But I've got a gut feeling that we've also not seen a real sense of their identity in these warm-up games. I do believe Emma Hayes kept a few tricks up her sleeve. Watch out, USA, play soccer and eat tofu. We got a smothering press that I know they spent time working on in practice, but we've not seen any of it yet. Australia, I think, will come second. And then Zambia will live out their dreams by getting through in 3rd place. That is how it's going to end. But you tell us how it's really going to end, Sammy.
Wow.
What goes on in your mind?
Rog, fascinating takes. I agree with you about the U.S., and I'm not just saying this. I think this is a tough group, but I genuinely feel like this team is up to the task. So I'm saying the U.S. are going to go through in first, but I'm giving Germany the benefit of the doubt, Rog. I'm surprised to hear that you don't think they're going to make it out of the group. That's the Olympics for you, though. It really is a toss-up. I can see Australia hanging on to a 3rd place finish that will get them through over some other 3rd place teams. But Zambia is going to put up a fight. Here I go again, being wishy-washy and just complimenting all the teams. If Barbara Banda is out here scoring hat tricks again, then it's anybody's group to win. And that is a really scary thought.
Last question for you. We've hinted at it throughout the American part of the analysis, but concretely, emotionally, we do talk about the US winning gold. That's what we do. We're American, we win. But rationally, we talked a little bit about it last night with Becky Sauerbrunn, young squad, new manager, little time to click. I guess the question is, what is success? What's the barometer? What's the measuring stick for this US team, big picture?
Yeah, we actually talked about this a little bit recently on our Altcast together, Raj. I think at the Olympics, medaling is uniquely successful. Like, getting a medal is a metric for success. At a different kind of tournament, coming in 2nd or 3rd doesn't really feel as special. Like, it's a good finish to be a finalist or to come in 3rd place. But at the Olympics, honestly, getting a medal is a huge part of the games. And I learned this in 2021 because I remember feeling absolutely devastated, like one of the lowest, worst feelings of my life when we lost to Canada in 2021 in the Olympic semifinal. But other players on the team, like Megan Rapinoe and Tobin Heath, were really quick to remind us we have to turn around this dark sadness and get ready for the 3rd place game. I specifically remember them saying, this isn't like a rinky-dink 3rd place medal. It's a real Olympic bronze medal. It's a real honor, and it matters. So I definitely think for this U.S. team, medaling is a metric of success. And speaking with Becky a little bit on that Altcast, I think that another metric is the growth and the cohesiveness for this team. At this point, a higher shots to goal ratio would be another metric for success. There's lots of room for growth here. And like Becky said, if the group can come away feeling good about their performance, that's what I'm really looking for.
Yeah, you mentioned Becky, and when we're talking about bronze medals, it was hilarious to find out that she essentially uses her bronze medal as a coaster and a cat toy. But I also love what Becky said about what success is in this moment for the US team. Almost, it sounded like a process, Sammy, rather than an outcome for this young squad. In Becky's words, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, do they love playing together? Do they find joy in their football on the field chemistry? Do they feel that collective connection that you and Becky are both so familiar with, Sammy? We know they're individually skilled. And I think that's what Becky was nudging us towards, to focus on the what rather than the to where. And that's what we're looking for, a run we can feel pride in, that we can make memories from watching together.
Oh, I love that, Raj. That's a good note to wrap up on. That just about does it for this Group B Olympics preview pod featuring the U.S. Women's National Team. The Olympics kicks off with all 12 teams playing on July 25th. Group B kicks off with Zambia versus the U.S. and Germany versus Australia. Stay tuned here for 2 more preview podcasts about Groups A and C, dropping over the next couple of days. And then we're off and running with our first pre-game podcast, dropping July 24th with Becky Sauerbrunn. Huge shout out to Allstate for making these preview pods possible. While you're here, please subscribe to our podcast feed and to our YouTube channel. Turn on those YouTube notifications so you don't miss any of our content. Follow along with us on social media at Women's Game MIB. Raj, thank you so much for being here with me.
Sammy, Group A, coming at you next.